Good morning and welcome to the 13th Annual General Meeting of Volunteer Marine Rescue New South Wales, which is being held in Building 3 at Marine Rescue Headquarters 202 Nicholson Parade, Cronulla, and is being live streamed over the net and may be attended by Zoom. I'm just going to ask our technical officer if we have any Zoom attendees. At this moment, we do not. There is, however, a quorum present. Unfortunately, we can't move the cameras around and show those who might be watching how many people are attending, but a quorum is present. If there's anybody who wishes to address the meeting, they'll be given a 2-minute period and discussion will be limited. After 2 minutes, they will be required to make an application to be further heard. I am in a position to close the discussion at my discretion at any time. I'll now call the meeting to order. I declare the meeting open, and as I have said under section 64, we have a constitutional quorum. I welcome my fellow directors, those members who are present. I should mention those who are sitting with me at the front, the Commissioner and the 2 Deputy Commissioners, Stacey Tanis, Todd Andrews and Alex Burrell. And there is at least 1 member of staff, no, 2 members of staff, 3 members of staff. We're getting there. More and more members of staff. It's just a flood present. We're also joined by James Winter, who is our long-term auditor now from Grant Thornton, Australia, and Michael Doherty from Michael Doherty Legal, who is our external legal advisor. There are no items on the agenda which require voting by proxy. Have there been any apologies? No apologies having been received. I move on. Marine Rescue has had another extraordinarily busy year, much of it not in our ordinary or traditional sphere of operations. This year again, Marine Rescue has been required to assist in flood efforts with communications, evacuations, resupplying isolated communities, door knocking at-risk properties, and acting from communication and liaison throughout the flood-affected areas of New South Wales. That's been in the south in Moama. I have recently returned from the central west where the Lachlan River is in spate, and the level of damage and infrastructure loss has been profound. And while it's not directly relevant to this annual general meeting, Stacey, when he gives a brief address, will be able to address some of the extensions to Marine Rescue that directly flow from our new involvement in flood rescue as we are receiving assistance from the government to go with the purchase of flood vessel recovery boats, and our member training being so good, we're able to supplement the other emergency services in a very active way in that area. So our facilities haven't been spared either. We've had massive flood damage to buildings. We've had vessels that have floated off their moorings and gone through the roofs of the sheds in which they were being retained. We've had damages to our equipment and our radio network. In all, the members have been remarkable, and I thank all of the members for their courage and dedication in these very challenging conditions, and particularly the support that they've received from Alex Burrell and from Stacey in terms of operational support, and equally importantly from Todd in terms of fiscal and financial support to make sure that we can still keep going. Without that team, we would be sorely tried indeed. There is a new strategic plan which has been developed and which has been accepted by the board and will now deal with Marine Rescue for the years from 2023 to 2026, which will help secure the future of the organisation, assist in a commitment to transforming our services processes, improving our governance, and improving communications to shape a better environment for the boating community, and particularly to enable them to serve the boating community better and to be more visible to the community generally. 4 members this year received the Emergency Services Medal. They were Bill Blakeman from Cronulla, Greg Davies from Marine Rescue Port Macquarie, Jim Wright from Marine Rescue Lake Macquarie, and Karen Parfitt from Bermagui. Congratulations to all of those for receiving the acknowledgement of the entire country, as the Emergency Services Medal is a national award. Also, Karen Lowry from Marine Rescue Sussex Inlet, along with our finalists David Mills and Grant Morehouse and Bernard Ryan, were at the Rotary Emergency Services Community Award Officer of the Year, and Karen Lowry was the winner of that, and I again extend congratulations to her. She's done a remarkable job in turning Sussex Inlet from a very small unit into a very, very dynamic one. This year, no life memberships of Marine Rescue have been nominated or awarded. I thank the volunteers for their efforts, and as I have already done, I repeat my thanks to the Commissioner and his staff, and I'll now ask Stacey Tanos to address the meeting as Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the Chairman has already mentioned, it's been an extremely busy 12 months and an extremely busy 2 years, with COVID, bushfires and multiple events of floods that have impacted the organisation. From a marine rescue perspective, last year was probably our second highest year on record for rescues, totaling about 3,900. The year preceding was about 4,200, which was an increase of 66% on the year prior to that. And we thought it might have been just a spike that particular year because COVID pushed everyone to the water, because it was deemed to be a reasonable activity for passive exercising on recreation by government under the public health orders. But there was an uptake, a significant uptake in new licences and registrations for boats, as Maritime was continually putting out in the media. And it looks like it's here to stay with us. So it's something that we need to deal with as an organisation, that extra load at 66%. I mean, that's enormous. And on top of that, we've got our members, as Jim was saying, that are participating in the floods, helping our colleagues in Orange around the state help the communities that are in need. And there's been a lot of that going on to date over these recent floods. I think we've had some 75 people of our members that have gone out to assist flooded communities and to assist the SES, as well as Moama, which was in the middle of one of the flooded areas. So we've got 26 members there that are on standby permanently at the moment until the floods totally recede. And are called out as needed to assist in logistical or boat duties, wherever they may need to be called for help. So it's been fairly testing on our members, but I've got to say a big shout out to all of our members that have just done an outstanding job over the last 12 months. And I want to let them know that we acknowledge that and we thank them for that, them and their families for all of the work they've done. And that we at headquarters and with the board collectively are trying to make that easier, because it looks like it's the new norm for us now moving forward. The government has made it quite clear from an independent review that they had undertaken, or the Mick Fuller review as it's known as, into the floods of last year. They came out with some fairly significant and hard-hitting recommendations, all of which the government approved in principle. A lot of them, were tweaked and they were aligned to the theme of what the recommendations were, but they were fairly significant changes across the emergency management sector. As the chair of the rescue board, I fought extremely hard to have one of the recommendations 4, which was the capability gap analysis of flood capability across New South Wales, that we could deal with that at a flood rescue board level, because it was going to be dealt with the DPC. And we were successful in that. And what that meant was we needed to look at the total arrangements for flood rescue, what the capability was, what the gap analysis was, and what capabilities across all the other agencies work time and what they should be into the future. There's still a body of work to do, but what it did identify and what these floods have identified in the last 2 years in particular, these consecutive floods, is that they're getting bigger and they're getting larger and they're getting more significant, these events, that the SES on their own cannot deal with it. And this is not a criticism of the SES, it's just the size, the pure size of these events and the geographical spread that these events have gone over that have just made it almost impossible. So they're becoming reliant, and it's now being embedded within policy that the support agencies have got a significant role to play. Now, in that review that we undertook at 4.1 of the recommendations, we came up with a pile of recommendations back to government as to how we would address this in the short, medium and long term. Part of that was what resources support agencies needed in the short term. Out of that, we have got probably $4 million. I'm waiting for confirmation on Monday, but I've heard that it's been approved through ERC, and that's for 15 multi-purpose vessels on trailers, 5.5 metres they are, that we'll be able to use. And our point was we wanted them that we could use on our day-to-day business, and when needed, we could send crews out with them, and they'd be the appropriate boats to be using in these flooded areas. So they've got a low V on them, 15 of those boats, up to 10 vehicles, between 7 and 10 vehicles to tow those vessels, because not all units have got vehicles, particularly if they've got boats that are berths. There's no requirement for them to have them, so we had to take that into consideration. And $1 million for PPE, specifically for that flood environment, so that when we need it, we can go. It's been difficult because the way the current flood rescue policy sits, we are embedded in that as being a coxswain that is required to go to man that vessel. That needs to be changed, and that'll be looked at the rescue board next week when we next meet. I'll put that on the agenda, that we revisit that to align it to what the capabilities and qualifications are of the other agencies that are participating in these events. And they're nowhere near the coxswain level. You know, they're really on our crew is probably more qualified, with the exception of flood awareness course, which is an online, few hours, I think, an online course. If we open it up to that, we've got 1,100 people that we've got access to, that have got the ability to attend if they have got the time and if the desire to do so. So the intent of all the agencies out of all of this is just to level the playing field, make sure we've got some consistent training, consistent qualifications across there, and we're all going to be playing in that space. So we need to shape our organisation moving forward, given the additional workload that we have now got in our core business, and the additional workload that's going to be requested of us, through these natural disasters events. They're not limited to floods. We've seen it in bushfires as well, where we've played a key role in evacuation centres, moving people, logistics, evacuating people off beaches, etc. So it's just a change of how we're going to be doing business, a slight change, but a significant change in the type of events that we can look forward to into the future. Over the past 12 months, we've purchased 8 new rescue vessels, 5 RWCs and 11 vehicles at a total cost of about $4.3 million. We have done some considerable work on building upgrades and facility upgrades as well. And during that time, there's been 1,473 training qualifications that have been handed out. Now, that sounds a lot, and it is a lot, and it's a lot of work that sits behind that. But with the analytics that sits on top of that is very important for us when we're shaping as to where to go forward. And that's the net gain of what we have of qualifications in individuals over that period. And it's nowhere near the 1,400. Like, we're talking single numbers when you take into consideration 300 members leave each year. When we actually 600 members leave each year, but 300 of them are long-serving members that walk out the door with qualifications. So it's right up there on the agenda as to the future, what the future holds for us and what we need to be addressing, which is why I've always held it, and so has the board, pushed hard for a training academy. That's had its ups and downs. It's probably a short and easy way of saying it, and the detail I'd need weeks to go through the step-by-step detail and the ups and downs that we've had over the last three years on this. It's not bedded down. There is no funding. We thought we were going to get it in as part of this flood review. It looks like it's been pulled out of that, and they're only going to go with one training academy for the flood, and that will be an SES-led one. Doesn't mean ours is dead in the water, but it means we need to now revisit and stop and think clearly just what our options are moving forward. But it still should be something that we should be talking about, because training is critical to our organisation and to our members moving forward. I'd like to thank the board, take the opportunity to thank the board. I've always enjoyed the support of the board since my commencement here back in 2011, and so it's an easy thing just to roll off the tongue, but it's so important to have good relationships with all of the board, all of the directors, and the chair, importantly, because a lot of my dialogue is with the chair. I mean, we speak on a daily basis. Sometimes we speak quite loudly to each other, you know, but it's healthy, and we've got to have those conversations to get on the same page, because it's all about the organisation and driving it forward and making sure that what we're doing is the right thing for the organisation. So I thank the board for their support to not only to me but to all the staff, and I thank our staff who have gone above and beyond, particularly during these events where it's not just volunteers out there. It's very taxing on the organisation. When we have volunteers out in the field, we have to have our staff as part of IMTs that are out there as well, managing that process, because it often doesn't get managed at a local level from the combat agency, because they are just so stretched with resources that they haven't got the ability. So they rely on agencies to look after their own people virtually with the briefings that we might get from at a headquarters level before that's done. So I thank Alex and his team that sit underneath him for coordinating all of that, and the rest of our staff for all of the work that they've done throughout the year. So thank you.
Thank you, Stacey, for a thorough examination of what we have seen in the past and what we might look forward to. The next formal part of the proceedings is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes of the previous annual general meeting, which was held on the 20th of November last year, have already been signed by myself as chair pursuant to the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission Act 2012. Those minutes have been distributed. No comments have been received. Are there any comments or questions from the floor arising out of those minutes? That being so, I'll move on to the next aspect of the matter, which is to receive the annual report, of which everyone should have a copy, and the financials, which includes, of course, the financial statements of the company for the year ended 30th of June 2022. The report provides, in addition to that, very interesting accounting material, a comprehensive overview of our activities and service to the community. James Winter, a friend as well as a partner at our auditors, Grant Thornton, is here and is able to answer any questions that members may have in relation to that circulated annual report. I'll ask, before I ask anything else about that, ask Todd whether any questions have been received.
No, in my position as company secretary, I confirm that no questions were received on the financial statements.
In that case, James, we won't trouble you to answer any questions,
Okay.
but we will ask you to tell us a little bit about
sure.
the report, if you would be so kind.
Yes, I'll just So thank you, Jim. Thank you for the opportunity to address the meeting this morning. What I wanted to say was to continue to congratulate the organisation on the financial performance. As we were the audit perspective, again, continued improvement in the professionalism and the quality of the information provided for the audit. From that perspective, very clean. We issued an unqualified report. From going through the financial statements, it's clear that the organisation is, from a administrative perspective, tightly managed and controlled, and the level of that expenditure has been consistent. But what is really important is that the deploying of the funds received and the cash. One of the financial statement documents is the cash flow statement, which is always very difficult to read. But what you'll see in there is that there's about $8 million worth of cash. And in fact, over the last 2 years, about $20 million worth of cash into capital, into plant equipment, into boats, into communications equipment. So it's essentially the funds received are deployed with a minimal, focus on the administration and a maximum focus on deploying into those capital expenditure areas. So that is very evident. The organisation continues to be in a sound financial position, but as I say, it is deploying those funds and not sitting on those funds, and that's critical in terms of that cash flow and receiving those funds in terms of the funding of the unit. So again, I congratulate the organisation. From our perspective, thank you to management for the assistance for the audit process. And as I said, there was little come out from the audit from our perspective, a high level of quality of the information provided, and I guess I can leave those comments there, Jim.
Thank you very much, James. It's as always a pleasure to have you here.
Sure.
And thank you for taking the time to come and be with us this morning.
Thank
you. Just before we leave this topic, I want to personally pass on my personal congratulations to Alison for producing this, which is the first time we've seen an annual report which is contained within it things like an analysis by the numbers of where we are when you need us, a series of pie charts which show who's done what where and how things have been produced, including by region and by unit, which is tremendously helpful, not only to those who read it generally, but to the board in particular, as it comes to review how our various units need to be supported and need to be considered. So we're very grateful to you, Alison, for that. That's, if I may say so, just from my personal point of view, it's a bloody good job. So thank you. In the next step in the proceedings is to introduce one of our oldest and closest, Noel Parkinson, who's been with Marine Rescue or its previous organisations for longer than most of us have been alive, who is the returning officer, returning as the returning officer to deal with the elections to the board. Thanks, Noel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You think?
James. Yeah, it's a few years that I've been doing this job. I remember in the very early stages when the commissioner sort of suggested that he'd supply lunch with when we really
and you're still waiting, is that
the checks in the mail. But yeah, the first year it was nothing, and then next year this rifle was made, and then so it really got sort of interesting then. Well, there's something to do, but it was difficult in those days. Now, thanks to technology, we do very little as the returning officer, but it's still an important job, I think.
It is.
And I enjoy doing
it. So now tell us what happened.
Okay, announcing the election of the General Director. Clause 25(1) of the Constitution requires that the members shall elect one General Director at each AGM. No election was required as only one nomination was received and ratified by the board for the position of General Director, and the candidate is elected unopposed. I declare that James, known as Jim, more affectionately, Glisson AM, ESM KC. Now, I mean, some people might get confused KC because last year he's a QC. be named General Director in accordance with clause 25(1) of the Constitution. So congratulations, Bill.
Thank you, Noel.
Regional directors by members of regions. Clause 25(1) of the Constitution requires that members of each region will elect a regional director in accordance with the rules and timetable determined by the board. The timetable for this year required elections for 3 regions: Greater Sydney, Illawarra and Monaro. In addition, an election was required for the Hunter Central Coast region due to the position becoming vacant after the resignation of the 2021 elected director. Announcing the election for Hunter Central Coast Regional Director, no nominations were received for the position of Hunter Central Coast Regional Director, and therefore the position remains vacant. Announcing the election for Greater Sydney Regional Director, 2 nominations were received and ratified by the board for the position of Greater Sydney Regional Director. I declare Ken Edwards, be named Greater Sydney Regional Director in accordance with 26(1) of the New South Wales Constitution. Congratulations. It's a nice photograph of you at Government House, Ken.
He wouldn't be the returning officer if he did.
Okay. Announcing election for the Illawarra Regional Director, I declare Kevin Marshall, ESM, being the only nominee received and ratified for the position, being named Illawarra Regional Director in accordance with clause 26(1) of the MR New South Wales Constitution. Congratulations. Finally, announcing the election for the Monaro Director, I declare that Glenn Falcon, ESM, being the only nominee ratified for the position, be named Monaro Regional Director in accordance with 26(1) of the Constitution. Congratulations. That's my duty over today, and there's no lunch, is it? Thanks very much.
Keep coming, there'll be one yet.
It'll be a good one.
You can promise anything, so you can never deliver. Thank you, Noel. I congratulate the returning directors on their election, and I'm looking forward to working with the board again in the coming year. Before I move on to say what will happen next in relation to the board, I just want to express my disappointment for the fact that so few nominations were received. Almost every director, not that it's other than an endorsement of the fact that those directors are doing a good job, because it is. But for an organisation to prosper, and for an organisation to grow, and for an organisation to move forward, we need more of its members to be actively involved and engaged in its management and its direction. The fact that no nominations at all were received and the board is therefore a board of 8 rather than a board of 9 is a matter that is quite troubling. The fact that only 1 election was required is also quite troubling. I encourage anyone who's watching this now or watching a recording of it afterwards to be very astute, to be engaged, not only in their own units and at unit level, but wherever possible in the broader marine rescue community, with a view to ensuring that we continue to prosper and flourish. Having said that, that is not a criticism of the present board. And at the conclusion of this meeting, there will be a short meeting of the new board of directors to allow them to elect chair and to deal with any urgent business, of which there is some, and to schedule the next board meetings. I would like to ask that their motion be put that online voting records be destroyed.
Yeah.
And nominated, moved Bob Wilson, seconded Glenn Falcon. Those in favour? Carried. Constitutional changes have also been proposed this year, and in that regard, we took the different step of asking the company secretary Todd Andrews, who was directly involved in the preparation and presentation of material, to be the returning officer. And I now pass over to Todd, the task of dealing with those proposals. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Chair. There are 5 proposed amendments to the Marine Rescue New South Wales Constitution by the Marine Rescue New South Wales Board that require a special resolution of the members of the company. The 5 proposed amendments are in relation to 1, appointing a chairperson and 2 regular directors; 2, management and leadership of units; 3, creation of zones; 4, creation of a state operations group; and 5, returning members. Resolution 1, that the Constitution is altered to change the composition and structure of the board in accordance with the proposed alterations in blue font in the draft amended Constitution circulated to members. 79.9% of the votes cast by members were in favour of the resolution. I therefore declare that the resolution is passed by a special resolution of the members in accordance with the requirements of clause 8.1 of the Marine Rescue New South Wales Constitution and the Corporations Act. Resolution 2, that the Constitution is altered to allow unit commanders to appoint up to 2 deputy unit commanders instead of a single deputy unit commander being elected, in accordance with the proposed alterations in purple font in the draft amended Constitution circulated to members. 78.6% of the votes cast by members were in favour of the resolution. I therefore declare that the resolution is passed by a special resolution of the members in accordance with the requirements of clause 8.1 of the Marine Rescue New South Wales Constitution and the Corporations Act. Resolution 3, that the Constitution is altered to reflect the new operating structure based on zones in accordance with the proposed alterations in red font in the draft amended Constitution circulated to members. 90.8% of the votes cast by members were in favour of the resolution. I therefore declare that the resolution is passed by a special resolution of the members in accordance with the requirements of clause 8.1 of the Marine Rescue New South Wales Constitution and the Corporations Act. Resolution 4, that the Constitution is altered to create a state operations group in accordance with the proposed alterations in orange font in the draft amended Constitution circulated to members. 90.5% of the votes cast by members were in favour of the resolution. I therefore declare that the resolution is passed by a special resolution of the members in accordance with the requirements of clause 8.1 of the Marine Rescue New South Wales Constitution and the Corporations Act. And finally, resolution 5, that the Constitution is altered to streamline the process for former members to be readmitted as general members in accordance with the proposed alterations in green font in the draft amended Constitution circulated to members. 94.4% of the votes cast by members were in favour of the resolution. I therefore declare that the resolution is passed by a special resolution of the members in accordance with the requirements of clause 8.1 of the Marine Rescue New South Wales Constitution and the Corporations Act. Thank you. I now hand you back to the chair.
Thank you, Todd, for that very colourful explanation of the special resolutions. And I'm pleased to say that the consideration jointly proposed by the executive staff and the board has been approved by members, and so resoundingly approved by members. It's very reassuring for those of us as we go forward into 2023. That concludes the formal requirements for the annual general meeting, beyond me just again saying thanks to our 2 returning officers for all the work they have done. Is there any general business? There being no general business, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's proceedings, and I declare the meeting closed.